We'll do it live then.
Fuck it.
Fuck it. Let's do it live. So we're here. This is the part 3 of my concept art tutorials. Thank you for joining us again. In this tutorial, I'm going to be carrying a concept that we made before into a fully developed painting. This is going to be a fairly long video, so just a disclaimer here. This is close to about 3 hours of full commentary. I'm not skipping anything in this video. The video is sped up to double speed, just so some of the really noodly parts we're not going to fall asleep or going over it. But I think it's very important for me to also talk about these the polishing up parts. So let's jump right in though. I'm also joined here with my friend Levi. What's up?
Hello.
And we'll be shimmering, and we're working side by side here to talk about some of the things that going on behind the painting. So in the beginning, I just copied over my concept, the thumbnail that we did on our last tutorial. I got a few comments that saying, hey, we should develop this Japanese street. The street scene is looking pretty interesting. And I agree with that. So let's see what happens with this one. Going right in, I'm using the channel, going to the channel editor, and I duplicated the blue channel. And on the duplicated channel, I used the level tool to make it into a black and white cutout. And I copied, control click on the thumbnail to select only the white part of that channel. This will only work in the channel box, in the channel editor, by the way. So I used that selection to come back in here and start to fill in a lot of the areas that's in the background. So I'll be painting inside of this. I made a layer mask of it. So when I paint in the background, it's only going to be clipped in that area. So I'm not painting outside of that. I'm not actually cutting into all the meaty silhouettes that I had before. So this is just a basic color base. I want to still focus on the composition. So this is a bit of a warm-up, a little bit of a cleanup for the thumbnail stage. Definitely want to get the background in there, establish some depth. Going super heavy-handed, I want to get most of the compositional things in there.
Are these darks as dark as anything's gonna be? Like, are you working with the darkest dark, you think, or?
It might be. I want to establish a sort of dark base so I can pull from it. This one's going to be a night scene.
Oh.
So right off the bat, I know that it's going to be a light scene. The red kind of just amplifies the atmosphere a little bit. Mm-hmm. But the darks are going to be fairly dark. But these are not anywhere close to a black yet.
So it's never good to use anything close to black, like super black.
No,
early, right?
yeah.
You want to give yourself room to breathe,
Some
I guess?
breathing room for sure, down the darker ends.
In case you want to make something darker.
Exactly. It's never use 100% black.
Yeah. Same with white too, right?
White is
until the
interesting.
end, at least.
Until interesting, because sometimes you blow out the lights a little bit, so you get that blooming effect. I'm not a fan of using like completely full range of the values. So you're on your histogram, everything's perfectly balanced out. It means you don't have very bright lights. You know, if we look at HDR images, when it's super compressed, everything just looks kind of muted. So you don't want that either. There's a two spectrum of doing this. But definitely don't use perfect darks. They have no breathing room. So I'm creating a bit of contrast here by quickly dropping in some highlights, some really bright, close to white, kind of a yellowish white there. I know my focal point is going to be way off in the distance, so I'm early on in the painting, establishing that depth is going to be very important. I'm still playing around with the idea of making this into a futuristic setting. So I'm thinking, elevated city, that kind of thing. The light in the background, you put a light against a dark element, these shapes, they will really stand out. So I know I want people to look further into the distance, so I'm putting a lot more contrast that's further away from us. But the focus right now is still very much on composition. You want to get enough in there so you're warmed up by the time you're establishing all the structures. You're getting your depth in there.
You're nice and zoomed out too.
Nice and zoomed out, yeah. Don't allow yourself to noodle on details too much right now, because a good base is half the work done. You want to really get this part correct. So most of the time, start of a painting is really just painting with silhouettes and painting with lighting in mind. So if you have some ideas about structures and things like that, it's very good time to try it right now because everything is so loose. Any ideas for breaking up bigger shapes, things like that, this is the perfect time to do it. Because later on in the painting, once you're committed, making big changes can be very costly. But right now it's so affordable, you can just destroy a certain part of the painting without actually having much difference.
Did you use any reference for this painting then?
Yeah, I used some references, but I'm keeping in mind to not use photo references. I rather just look at some paintings I like and get a clear idea. Get a base idea of what I wanted to paint. So I like a cityscape. I like things to be at night. So I look at that. And you should always use references on the side. I find my better paintings come out when I have a better idea, at least an idea going into it. If it's just complete random, it'll take a lot longer to find what I'm looking for. So having a base idea is good. Do some research before you start. Now, for my personal paintings, I usually like to explore a bit, try some different things, different ideas. Right now I'm using a overlay layer on top, so I'm actually doing a color wash, getting some light bluish, light aqua in there in the background. So that is the city lights have this artificial kind of neon light kind of feel, so sometimes the filtering goes up to a lighter tint, so like a bluish, a cool color. But still, the entire painting right now is fairly dark, fairly grounded into a dirty brown and red. I quite like that. I like to use these colors to separate out distance and also separate out a little bit of the eye direction and stuff like that. I was talking about my personal paintings. You don't need a lot of information going into a personal painting because you're your own art director. But once you're working for someone else, you want to do a lot of research, at least like a couple hours or half a day of just hardcore researching, finding references and things like that. You should have a folder of them before you start.
This is nice. Is that are those like puddles on the ground or?
Right now I'm thinking puddles. But I think when I started the painting, I wanted the ground to be a cutout. So there's only the ground plane on both sides of the street, and the middle is like it sort of extends down. I was playing around with that idea. I'm not sure it worked. I guess it really depends on how futuristic I want to make this setting to be. Because I could go fully, Minority Report, or I can stay fairly grounded.
So there's going to be two planes? Yeah, it does depend on how futuristic. I guess you don't really have it in mind yet. You're just still fooling with it.
Yeah, the thing was making a multiplane is that it needs to be a reason. Like the other plane sort of has to depict something, something interesting to look at. If there's nothing interesting to look at, then the idea doesn't fly. You should just stick to having something solid.
What are you doing here? You're just trying to...
I'm trying to extend the downtown area down onto the basement level there. I'm not sure, because if I were to do that, I have to open up the right side of the ground. So developing the left side a little bit, still using a fairly soft brush, just brushing all over the place. I'm working fairly small now, still using small round brushes, texture brushes.
Why aren't you getting that lasso in there?
Oh, what did you just say?
Just as I speak, there it is.
The lasso in there.
Yeah, come on. Give me a good stroke there. Okay. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, still
there
finessing a little bit.
There's a nice plane. All right.
Yeah, I'm trying to be careful not to overdo the first parts, because you're making every decision on the fly here. What you put down ideally is going to stay there for the rest of the painting. So it's kind of like developing or rendering a scene section by section, but also keeping in mind of the entire picture. So everything you put in, you kind of need to balance out with something else. The yellow accent is really there to sort of accentuate the futuristic effects, because you don't really see that much yellow neon lights in the cityscape right now. See a lot of reds, a lot of blues. So this is a little bit of a style decision. Better save that before I lose anything. I hate losing work. It's so brutal.
Well, you say this CS6 is good for that.
Yeah. Photoshop CS6 is actually really good for that kind of stuff. It saved my ass multiple times when I thought I lost everything, and the system reboots, and there's a recovery file. Just like the 3D softwares. It's really cool. Getting some highlights on the right side. Just things that's like breaking up the shapes, because you want to get all your major shapes in right now. You can't wait to say leave the right side for later and just keep on developing the left side. No, the right side needs some attention and love too. You want to give the whole painting almost a balanced look. Not in the sense that you want to overdevelop everything to the same degree, but you want to have a focal point and work from that point outward. So into creating contrast, there's obviously a lot of different ways to do it. You can do it in value differences, darker areas, brighter areas, the black and whites, or in color. In the sense, what's closer to us has a darker color and a little bit of a muted red, a little muted aqua. But further on in the distance, you see the yellow popping out there. So you can create some contrast in color as well. Complexity is also another way. We'll have area that's a little bit flatter, a little bit simpler, and then the area that has a lot happening. So there's a lot of different ways to redirect the energy of the painting. I'm just starting to introduce a little bit of a blue, a dark blue in there. A cityscape, it's an artificial thing, and they have a lot of different colors. This is not like a forest where you generally have a dominant color. In this sense, a concrete jungle will have a lot of billboards, a lot of man-made structures, and everyone's trying to stand out because they're individual shops. So they're trying to use colors and use their own sort of accented colors to stand out from everything else. So to get that balance, you kind of need to be mindful of where you place your colors. Right now, I feel like the whole painting is tunneling in a little bit too much. So back to broad strokes, I'm trying to open up some areas on the walls. I don't really like how this is really just funneling right into the middle section, being very, very small. So still, this is a stage to make all the big decisions, the changes. You don't want to leave these until the end.
So it's reflection?
I'm not quite sure what it is yet.
Just strokes right now.
Just strokes right now, but the lighter blues, I think those are background elements. So I'm opening up a section on the right wall, connecting it to. I want more downtown. I don't. The right side's getting a little bit too dominant for me. So at this stage of the painting, you don't want to be too committed. You want to be working big to small and avoid too much details. The things I'm doing right now, they're all structural changes. So like opening up the right side of the window, making some vertical strokes. These are all things that can be changed fairly quickly. So spend minutes on these ones. And now I'm thinking these little lines, they're kind of like railways. I'm still playing around with the idea that the bottom being open, the bottom of the street. The right side structure, having those beams in, creates a bit of a silhouette. So now at least the background is more apparent, and then we have a little bit more room to play around with. Treating the ground with a bit of reflections.
Are cities like your favorite thing to paint now? Or
Haven't painted one for a long time, actually. It used to be my favorite thing to paint.
now what's your favorite thing to paint?
I don't know, girls. Since I don't do it nearly enough. All my work has been environment. So, just for myself. Using a lasso and then combining it with the clone tool, the clone stamp tool, can create some really interesting effects. Some area that you're not really sure about, just lasso a part of it out and use the clone stamp to quickly drop in some details, some random doodads in there. So these are like neon lights. These are little shop lights to attract people. Just quickly brush these in. Doesn't have to be perfect right now. But if it looks good, keep it there. If it doesn't, change it to something else. That's generally the idea. So before you ever go into detail, you should always paint with the whole picture visible. Don't allow yourself to zoom in too much, because everything you do on this side is going to make a difference on the other parts. Using lasso tool is a really quick way to establish any shapes that you want. So getting a quick shape in there using the polygon selection tool and stuff like that is very, very useful. You see me using that on a lot of the street panels, the side streets and the facades. Using the polygon selection tool is really great for that. It's also great for establishing, perspective lines and stuff like that. So to switch to your selection tools on the fly, press L for lasso, and continue pressing Shift L to swap between magnetic lasso and polygon selection. So just without going to the toolbar, you can jump between your brush and the lasso tools very quickly. Other shortcut keys to keep in mind: Control M for curves. Curves are so important. You could do most of your image adjustment just with curves. So really learn to use curves. I'm probably going to dedicate another video tutorial on photo bashing. So using curves is almost a necessity for almost every photo that you bring in. The only adjustment I think the curve doesn't do is saturation. So you still need to press your Control U for hue and saturation. But everything else just curve. Curve has, you can adjust the brightness and even the colors. You go into the different channels of the red, green, and blues. I flipped the painting a bit to check out what's wrong, like what's different, because your eyes will get tired of a painting very quickly. Ever since you're developing the perspective and things like that, things are gonna get wonky once you flip it, because you're not gonna get it right the first time. So I'm just going in and adding some.
That's nice right there. Oh well.
Adding some stuff to the right side here. So you want to bring out some light in the darkness, giving it a bit of balance. Cityscape is so fun to paint, especially after you visit places like Tokyo and Shanghai. Those kind of major metropolis, these mega cities, are just ridiculous. Because I live in Canada, and our downtown are kind of small, and I don't really go there too much. But when you go to Shanghai and places like Hong Kong, it's quite crazy, eh?
It's just Canada closes so fast. Everything shuts down at 1 o'clock.
Right.
Places like Shanghai and Tokyo, they don't sleep.
They don't sleep, really.
And you can go, and in Shanghai, you could take a taxi anywhere, whenever you want.
Because the taxis are dirt cheap.
It's just ridiculous.
It's like 3 o'clock in the morning, you can...
Here you can't even...
go down, grab a drink.
In Canada, you need a car to get anywhere, and it's just...
Car is kind of important, yeah. Not in Shanghai. I would love to tab.
Even if you have a
taxi.
car in Canada, it's... I don't know. Unless you're very outdoorsy. Unless you're into camping, snowboarding, things like that.
I'm into camping and snowboarding.
Well, then you're happy in Vancouver.
I'm not interested in mosquitoes, though.
Oh.
But Shanghai is quite amazing. Just like, you stand right in the middle of the street and you're looking every direction. There's tons happening.
And then everyone's looking at you thinking, what's this guy in everybody's way for?
Right. With your camera and your traveler bag. Until someone grabs it from you.
Wait, what? They don't grab things from you.
Oh, is that someone tried to kill you in Shanghai?
No.
Lady massage guy?
What? Just the late night guys that try and...
No. The guy that went up to you and be like, lady massage?
Oh,
lady massage?
That's just solicitors.
Right.
They're just soliciting.
Getting that bright spot against dark really brings out the background. So use it very wisely. You don't want to get too much of it. If you have the same amount of contrast throughout the area, it will flatten out the planes. I still want to be mindful of where my background plane is, where my foreground plane is. So I'm going in with lasso tool to detail up the background a little bit. To flatten things out and get a good base. Like I said, flattening part of the painting is almost equally important as adding in details. So you really want to keep some of the areas flat, just so that you can pull things out a little bit closer next time. Flipping it back. I'm using screen layer on this one. It just adds on top of your painting and makes it brighter. Every information you put down is going to be added on top of the base. So screen layer is very good for, say, adding atmospheric perspective. In the background there's going to be more filtering, so you want to grab a soft brush, texture or not, it doesn't really matter, and go in with very low opacity. So right now I have it set to 40% opacity and 63% what is that? Flow.
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 You use flow.
Flow is awesome.
I don't even know what flow does.
I think flow just makes your brush softer and so it blends a little bit better. Yeah, after you do your screening layer, you want to go back in and check the layer opacity. So lower it down a bit, raise it up a bit, try to find a sweet spot over there. A lot of times we do these things really heavy-handed, so if there's something that you're doing that you're not sure about, make a new layer and do it as heavy-handed as you want to, and then tune it down with the layer opacity.
I like that top left part.
Oh, the yellow part? Yellow
like,
against
looks kind of like somebody's living there in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
Like they have like blinds.
Yeah.
And I like that you can see that it's high up, because the city, the gap in the middle, that goes all the way to the bottom of the shot.
Right.
It's nice. I also like that there's lasso happening here.
I know you like that. Now I'm just trying to get some people in the street. You want to do this before you add any detail to the side of the walls.
Oh, you're good at the silhouettes, eh? Nice.
They're pretty primitive, if you ask me. But I'm going to just use my free transform tool, move it around a bit, duplicate it. You know, we need more guys.
I've seen some bad silhouettes in my time. My silhouette's brutal.
Do they kill each other?
They're not merciless. Right? They're just brutal.
Okay. So when you're painting a busy street like this, it's fairly important to have people in there. It will look kind of awkward if you have a busy street with all the lights lit up and no one, just empty street. I think that would be pretty awkward.
Be like Canada, 3 in the morning.
True.
There's some nice after-hours places in Toronto, I think. They're illegal, obviously, but they're...
Are there?
I've been to some nice ones. They have like pool tables and alcohol and...
Oh yeah, there are KTVs and billiard tables, yeah.
Yeah, but some of them are hidden, which makes it kind of neat.
Oh, and you can smoke in those.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. And they have smoke detectors and people jumping in with cups of water, dropping your cigarette butts in them before the police come.
That's interesting.
Yeah. They get checked a lot, actually. It's interesting how they compete to stay in the business by, breaking some laws. Maybe I should put a KTV in here.
A KTV?
In the painting? No, that wouldn't work. So right now, after flipping around my painting a few times, I realize how crappy the perspective is. It's almost non-existent because I'm just eyeballing everything. So right now, I open a new layer, I grab my line tool, and pick a really bright color. I like using neon blue with my perspective lines.
But this is green, Frank.
Oh, sorry, green, neon green. Wow, what am I eating today? Also,
I would start a city with these.
you could start a city with these, and you probably should. The only problem is that I don't want this to influence my design in any regard,
Oh,
so I can always
okay.
fix it.
So that's why you
Because
want.
if I see all these lines, then all my designs and line structures, it's gonna follow this perfectly. I guarantee you.
It could limit your creativity a bit, right?
Yeah.
If
So
you just have those lines right away.
just have the discipline to stop and do this before shit get crazy.
Okay. But I can see the value in not having it at first. Because at first I was like, why isn't he...
Yeah, why
But
am
I
I
guess-
not using perspective?
But then giving yourself the freedom to come up with all sorts of shapes, I guess that
Yeah.
does have some
I mean,
benefit.
Obviously, if you have just no perspective sense at all, you should probably have some, some guides in the beginning. Maybe
yeah.
just a few freehand strokes. But if you can get fairly close, then feel free to go without it
At least for the start.
for the start. And yeah, but if you're painting cityscape, definitely have this at some point. It's just so important because your eyes don't catch on to these things until you put a line next to it. And then you see the right side of my painting. This is really awful because these lines are converging to the same point. So if these two walls are parallel, that's what the right side should follow. And now it's way off. Now this is like a funnel. The two streets are diagonally facing each other.
I'm ashamed I can't even look at it anymore.
I cannot. So I just grab a red pen to just circle around the areas I want changed. This is mostly for a guide to myself. I want to separate out that area, maybe push this back in. Keeping the streets though. Oh, when you do your perspective line sheet, like a whole grid of green lines, it might be useful to set your line tool to pixel mode instead of shape mode or pen mode. Because I think when you use pen, you're creating a lot of different paths. So using pixel mode, it's just like drawing with the line tool instead of creating all sorts of weird path that you don't really need, because you just need a sheet of pixels. So grabbing the entire right side of the painting and copy merged on top. I think it's Control-Shift-C and then Control-V pasting on top, and then just free transform it. Free transform it until the lines converge to your vanishing point and perspective lines. So you see the right side looks really messy right now, but that's okay. It's the price you have to pay. It's easy fixing things right now. Imagine if I developed the whole painting and realized I have really shit perspective. That would be really bad. And now it just opens up more area for the downtown area. So I can have more a focal point and background stuff to play around with. I realized just the right side doesn't have enough perspective lines. I need two planes over there. So some part of the building will extrude out a little bit. That's why I'm duplicating the perspective layers.
It already looks more solid.
Yeah.
It already looks like it makes more sense now.
Yeah, now the streets look parallel instead of just funneling in. A lot of people would make that mistake. Because it's what their brain would tell you. So if the two streets are converging and they get so fixated on that one point perspective, so those streets get closer and closer together until they merge into a mushy point.
1 point perspective isn't very useful for anything, is it?
It is in some regard. I mean, if you're painting like an alleyway and this is an example of a 1 point perspective actually.
But I mean converging on 1 point.
No, you don't want it to be too apparent.
Yeah.
You don't want every line to go into the same point. It'd be pretty awful. So obviously in the background, I want everything to be facing a different plane. The streets are not perfectly a grid system. Unless you're in Vancouver, then it is. So already I'm going in to fix the area that used to be the right wall. But now I'm trying to layer these structures a little bit more. This is quite an interesting part of the painting in the sense that what's closer to us, it's built cheaper. It's kind of like a back alleyway versus what's the focal point being the high-rise. There's banks and shops and
Shanghai. You're painting Shanghai.
basically. So you're looking from this perspective of a dirty alleyway into what's a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar structures. And
think of the inflation if it's the future.
right. Are we still dealing with Chinese currency here?
How many RMB is this shot worth?
A shot?
Wow, that building in the back.
Oh, I don't know, actually. Guess I have to freshen up on my knowledge about Chinese billion-dollar cities.
Shanghai's up and coming, man.
It's already so big.
It's just gonna get cleaner and more efficient every year
I would like that.
until it's all caught up. And 20 years from now, it'll be an amazing place. It should be.
It should be. It's still already an amazing place. If you have money.
Yeah, that's true.
If you don't have
The
money.
money wall in Shanghai, and Asia, really, the money wall
It's
is.
like a great wall to
It's very apparent
to
there.
live in, yeah. If you don't have money, don't go to Shanghai, basically.
Don't bother.
Don't bother. You're not going to have fun there. But if you have money, go to Shanghai, because it's pretty much the best place you could be in when you have money. So now I'm grabbing my lasso tool, actually polygon selection tool this time. And I remember that I want to make a section out for the midground elements.
It's too merged with the back now, you think, or
No, I'm thinking right at this point I don't have enough contrast.
it's got to cut out a bit better.
It's gonna cut out a bit better because I have the right side of the building selected here, and I'm gonna inverse my selection because I just darkened down the right side. I'm going to right now select the midgrounds and really just separate out the values a little bit more. Give them something of a local value, just so that they're not so close together. So a lot of times you need to take a step back and look at your painting from a more analytical point of view, and then come out with a solution that's going to fix some of the problems that you have.
Well,
so it's like a process. You check your mirrors, basically.
That's what everyone's doing when they're moving their head around when they're CGing, though, don't you think?
Moving
when
their head
people
around.
are like
Yeah.
bobbing and weaving in there. That's checking your own painting out,
Right.
isn't it?
There we go. Curves again. You can do everything with curves. So that's why you look like you're rocking out with your painting.
Well, you do too. Everyone does it.
And do
I
even know.
find I even do it when if I watch you paint.
I
You kind of notice some people kind of tilt your head a little bit.
just do it because my leg hurts.
No, you don't. You do it because you're checking out the painting.
And I squint my eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody should squint their eyes when they paint. Yeah, so after you separate out the midground, give it a little bit of a lighter tint, a small color shift, and apply a layer filter, a layer mask on top of it so that you blend in the bottom a little bit by painting in black. Coming back in now, a little bit more zoomed in. I think we're going through a little bit of a detail pass. Just, random brushing, getting some things in there.
Because you couldn't resist, Frank.
Something is better than nothing. I could not resist.
You couldn't resist it.
How long am I supposed to wait? And this is the whole painting about.
You love this stuff, yeah.
Actually, most of my paintings takes less than 10 hours to complete. I like to put in sketches and details that look more detailed than it is, really. So you just pretty much suggest what's going to be there and let the viewer's eye fill in the details later on. Yeah, be really careful about the messy brushstroke in the back, because the back is really, it has a closer value range, so anything you do in the back is going to make a lot of difference in terms of structure and form. So you really want to flatten out everything and just make every decision kind of deliberate. You don't want to have too much messy stuff happening in the back. So in this sense, I almost want to work back to front. Things that requires a bit of finesse needs to be flattened out and nicely separated first. And then when you go to the front, you can take a little bit more liberty, be a little bit more sketchy, and it'll be fine. Lasso tool and polygon selection is really good for flattening things out, and it creates a selection for you to be painting in. So that, say that's your plane, you can do minor gradients in it. You can do texture, and it'll just be confined to that area. So really take advantage of it. Learn how to use this tool very efficiently. Also use it when in conjunction with hide selection tool. So once you get your selection in and you don't want to see the squiggly line, the dotted line around the borders, just press Ctrl H to hide it and paint into it. After you're finished, press Ctrl H again to reveal the selection again, or Ctrl D to deselect. Get really familiar with the Photoshop shortcut keys. It'll make your painting not only faster, but your whole process a little bit more streamlined. A lot of the times when I first started to do digital painting, I didn't know any of the shortcut keys. So my painting take ages, and I was laboring at the most mundane things without knowing these shortcuts. They almost make your painting process much easier and much more enjoyable, because you're
not fighting the tools.
You're not fighting the tools, and the tools are there to help you. So I'm working from the focal point outward. I want to have pretty good base in the background. So I'm not too worried about the foreground right now. They can stay dark and just silhouette it, and it would be fine. The background right now is what people are going to be looking at. When you're picking your colors, you want to be careful about introducing new colors too. But in this sense, I got a little light purplish blue, and I'm pulling it on the background structure over there. I don't want this to stand out too much, but it's just a little bit of an accent, a hint to make the background building kind of pop. So give it a little bit of a futuristic edge. Again, flattening things out, darker on the bottom. Really make that silhouette hard-edged. So behind this structure, there's going to be another building. It was there before, so now I'm just going to refine these shapes. The buildings, usually, when you're dealing with architectures like these, they usually have very hard edges. You're not going to see too many organic lines. They're usually fairly straight up, matchbox style. Even the futuristic ones have to follow some kind of architectural rules. And I'm being careful about the negative space, the top of the skyline that's creating too. So you want shapes that complement each other. You don't want, say for example, adjacent shapes fighting with each other. You don't want any tangents.
Those little details you did on the top right, that really paid off, I guess. The little noodling you did on the right side.
Yeah, it's just enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, just enough to suggest things.
I was shaking my head when you were noodling that, and I looked away. And then I looked back, and I was like, oh,
when you zoom out,
he didn't go too crazy. He was like,
no.
It just enough that it works.
Keep your noodling to a minimum, but if it tells a story, if it sells a little bit of something, then keep it in there.
Well, that was kind of a nice mistake just there for a second.
Yeah, my control key on my keyboard keeps sticking, so if I'm not releasing it with enough pressure, it'll drag on. It's kind of awful.
Oh, what a disaster!
What a disaster. So this is another important thing about painting from back to front and your focal point outward. You get those buildings in the back cleaned up, and instantly your painting becomes a little bit more tidy. Because those are the parts that people are going to look at, and once those parts get cleaned up, it kind of doesn't matter how the rest of the painting is so still messy. I'm using the blue there to accent the bottom. Now the bottom of the structures are generally going to be darker because I guess there's more occlusion, but to balance that out, there are also more street light at the bottom.
What's occlusion?
Occlusion is when ambient light doesn't reach like those really deeper pockets of areas.
Oh. So when I flex and I look at my bicep and I see shadows, that's occlusion at work?
Pretty much.
Nice.
Everyone just look at their biceps. Like, guns.
Well, if they're not as powerful as mine, you won't see.
Basically, if you don't see occlusion on your biceps, you're not working out hard enough.
Yeah, you need some work.
You need some work. You need to get occlusion everywhere on your body.
Man, look at that occlusion.
Jesus Christ.
That could be a cool compliment. I'll start using. I'll rep that.
No
a
one
bit.
will get it.
I'll rep it a bit.
Absolutely,
We'll
no
try
one
and
will
spread
get
that around.
Right. So they're creating a light pattern to put on the buildings. It's really,
This is the fun
really
part,
useful.
really, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the funnest part.
But just make your decisions count, because you don't want to do this 5 times over.
Because then it wouldn't be fun anymore.
Then it wouldn't be fun anymore, yeah. Because when you do these light patterns, generally you're making a pattern on the side and then you're free transforming it on top of it. It's quite a lot of work, you know. But it's very worth it. It pays off. I'm thinking that part is a parking garage, because I open it up with indoor lighting. You put that bright white-ish color against a darker background. And billboards, of course. There again, using the clone stamp tool, just dropping in some detail. Clone stamp is really, really useful. I have a lot of randomized brushes. These brushes create kind of like a matrix of random shapes. So when you're dealing with a busy street or things in the background that doesn't require a lot of finesse, you can get some randomized effect with them. Clean them up afterwards. Also work on a new layer so that you can quickly erase into it.
What are you at, like 29 layers now?
I don't know.
20.
Yeah, 20.
Doesn't really matter as long as it's organized.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not organized right now.
Well, you're just going on top, on
I'm
top,
just going
on top.
crazy on top.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Aim for about 100 layers.
That building in the back worked out really well.
Yeah, they're there to stay.
So that's the garage right there.
That's the garage right there.
I like that.
It's a bit tall. When you're painting cityscape, you just want to take from real life, basically.
So is that like a glass floor or something?
I still don't know, really, because I just left it there, right? I didn't have a clear development of that floor. So right now I'm adding a car. Yeah, obviously I'm gonna zoom in a bit. I'm such a car nut. I don't know if anyone recognizes the car, but I'm trying to be cheeky here.
Frank likes to draw his car into things.
It's kind of like a fetish. I don't really talk about it.
A fetish? Sure that's the right word for it? A fetish? Should I leave the room?
When I draw cars, yes.
Oh my gosh.
Gotta get those sexy reflections in. Yeah, I'm spending way too much time on this car. Gotta do something else. Alright.
You want to make it a focal point, obviously.
Alright, stop it. Stop it. It's already dead.
Don't be embarrassed.
And now I'm just painting structures to the background. I want to clean up the area that the building meets the ground. And also...
Yeah, because it's still kind of ambiguous there.
Yeah, it really is. I want to add some street light, maybe. Red! Yay.
Yeah, that would totally liven up this picture. Just
Yeah.
start putting in some colors now.
For sure. There's so much color in the city. So don't be afraid to add a few more in. So I'm getting close to the really noodly parts now. Still detailing up the left side of the wall. I guess right now the major mission is to get all the messy shapes that you see into some sort of a structure. Basically making planes out of these brush strokes. That would mean flattening out some areas, making reflections out of some areas. So now I'm adding the headlight and the casted headlight reflection on the ground. The car's low beam will hit on the ground right in front of the light, and also the reflection will sort of extend down a little bit. When you add a light source or things like that to a painting, you gotta be mindful that the light's gonna affect a lot of different surfaces. There's gonna be reflections or a little bit of ambient light, casted shadows, things like that. So be careful about making a light look out of place. If things are not reacting to the light, then it would look kind of out of place. The darker part of the left side of the painting, it needs some touches. So lasso tool, select an area, fill it in. I like to do these small gradients. What it is basically, it's just brush it lightly and then create a little textured gradient feel. It's a small reaction to the light source, but it helps the viewer's eye catch on to the edge. So you get like an edge that's a little bit sharper and then an edge that's a little bit lost. It's a really, really nice effect. I'm putting my perspective layer on top again just to check. So I think that area is out of perspective. The little window section, yeah, is way off. It's always good to check. So duplicate it. Just control merged every time you want to change something, because you're still painting right on top of everything. It doesn't really matter. So select an area, Control Shift C, Control V again to paste it on top. just take advantage when you have that perspective layer on top. Try to fix a lot of things. Like, you won't see it if you look at it yourself, but when your perspective is wrong, the painting will always look sort of kind of out of balance. Something will always look skewed. You know, ideally you could use 3D software to do this fairly quickly. Actually, just use model out some boxes and light it, simple lighting. But it's not super necessary in this regard. It's like, if you can do perspective freehand, why not save some time? If you have a basic, rendering engine in your head, then you should be able to do this without much help. But if you want something production level, super crisp, maybe a matte painting, then yeah, stop at about, I don't know, 20-30 minutes ago and do yourself a favor to get some models in. I find those models really useful for area that's like really precise, say boiler room, or mech interiors, maybe a high-tech sci-fi corridor. So those things are super intense in details. 3D will help with that a lot. Things like this that's a little bit messy, you can get by without using it. But the name of the game is to use your full arsenal of tools to get the final result. I almost do not care how you approach it, or what ways, what techniques, what tools, tablets, whatever. Just so that you get the final result good, that's the most important part. So now I'm brushing in these slanted lines, and I'll use a selection tool to separate out the area that I want versus the area that I'm just going to delete. Duplicate it, swing it around the other way, and free transform. So I want to merge this part after cleaning up the edges. Yep. Checking to see if these two are okay. Maybe move a little bit closer. This is the fun part about doing buildings in the back. Just getting those windows, getting the lights in.
Imagining you live there.
Imagining I own a condo in Shanghai. Not gonna happen.
Future Shanghai.
Future Shanghai. The best Shanghai. No, the only Shanghai.
Well, you don't want to go to past Shanghai.
Yeah, locking down the transparency, and actually I'm making a selection of it to do a layer mask. So now I can go in and maybe try some different lightings on top. So just using that as a layer, like a silhouette layer, I can do all sorts of lighting stuff on top. See, creating that gradient with the selection is so important, and so effective too. Just keep things a little bit more interesting. Yeah, being very careful about the perspective there, raising it up just a little bit. I'm doing all these details on separate layers just so I can either tune it down or free transform it without touching anything. So that's kind of important. Oh, holding down Shift and clicking at a point will make Photoshop drag a line over with your brush tool. It's not perfectly effective, but some of the times when you just want a straight line from dot A to dot B, just click a brush on the canvas, hold down Shift and press on another point. Photoshop will generally make a line for you based on your brush pressure.
That's intimidating to zoom in on.
Yeah, it totally is. But getting the background clean helps it a lot, I find.
Gotta get some signs in there, bro.
Not yet. Gotta wait for it. Have patience.
Billboards.
Billboards. So I would say that the background buildings are close to being there. Now I'm just working outward to the midground. Ideally, I want to get everything a little bit more polished up. At least just cleaned up. Maybe not quite to the same polish all over the painting. That would actually be not very good, but just enough things to be polished up that it tells a story. Now I'm working on the sort of like the more mechanical structures of this painting, getting some beams in there. This is really the fun part again.
Everything's been the fun part for a long time.
Well, painting is kind of fun.
Really?
Grinding is not fun though.
When a painting's working, it's fun.
Yeah, I hate those parts where I'm just grinding away for hours and the painting looks not very good. I have those days. Everybody has those days. So it pays off to have an idea going into a painting. If you don't, then you might end up grinding a little bit. I think that structure is pretty effective now. I like to use a kind of a darker aqua, darker bluish tint for those mechanical parts. Give that cold steel kind of feel. So it's really a mixture of concrete and steel and high-rise buildings in the back, creating a bit of contrast. A little bit more interesting than just having everything concrete, I think. So this is all, detail treatment. If it's a speed painting, you could stop at, any point. But since we're taking this further, I might as well talk about how to treat your details and add on top of it. Like, I'm not spending a huge amount of time super zoomed in with the pixel brush. This is not designed to be a matte painting. In fact, it's just a way for me to show you what it means to me to take a concept, take a thumbnail, and developing it into a full illustration. So you notice that I'm making lights a little bit more busy towards the bottom of the cityscape. Generally, that's where most of the things will happen. You know, there's shops that are open. There are billboards, neon signs a little bit closer to eye level. When it goes up to the skyline, everything's going to be more cleaned up. So generally you get large shapes, clean, crisp lines, and those building lighting.
How'd you make it feel misty and wet?
Reflections, really. If the ground and the structures are wet, say after a rain, light would reflect off a wet surface a lot more than a dry surface. So having those streaky vertical reflections.
And the cloudy light pollution at the top too.
Well, you know Shanghai has it. The smog is always there. Just slowly cleaning up the background a little bit. When you're getting stuck at a painting, it may be beneficial to take a break, stop, and go look at more references. Say that you didn't start with enough references, and you're getting stuck at something and you're trying to make shapes and it's not working. Or maybe you just like don't feel it's going in the right direction. Then just walk away for a bit. Flip it around, walk away, come back after a few hours or even a day. If you come out with a better idea and continue with it. I would suggest to push forward because a lot of paintings go through a stage. In the beginning you get this awesome concept, awesome idea. You're like, awesome, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna render this. It's gonna be my best painting ever. But then in the middle of it, start getting shit. It's like things you try are not working, and you're thinking this concept is garbage. Perspective's not working. Everything's feel like a grind. A lot of the paintings feels like that. But if you push just past that barrier, I find it will start looking good again because you're making all these decisions on the fly. You're making all the choices about where to put things and things like that. Flipping it around, going away for a little while, go take lunch, come back. Maybe you have a fresher idea. Every painting is a problem-solving process. Doesn't matter if it's a map painting or just like your own personal paintings. If you can solve the problem, then what you're looking at is a result. It's a result of good decision making. Painting should be just all about decisions. It's not really a showcase of techniques. What is a showcase of technique? It's kind of like a study. You paint an orange, right? You paint it so real that it attracts birds, for example. That's a showcase of skill. Your personal painting is not that. It's a mixture of everything. So you should never really just do paintings for the sake of, I guess, copying something. If you're doing something to learn, you have to be really careful, or actually really clear in what you want to get out of it. Say you want to paint something in someone else's style. That's fine. Paint it in his style, learn his techniques. The best artists steal. It's great. It's how people learn. But you want to go into it with a clear expectation of what you're going to learn. Right? Sometimes you look at a painting, that color scheme is to die for. Then you go in, try that color scheme, but paint your own thing. Don't paint the exact same thing they're painting. You have to think. Because when you steal from someone, they have made all the decisions ahead of you. So if you're not thinking about it, you're just like copying it, then you're not really learning much. One of the best learning processes, I guess it's called progressive learning, is that you break things down. You make a progression out of it. You break things down, you learn it little by little. Maybe today I'm just going to tackle colors, tomorrow composition, maybe a section of color. Maybe I just want to do one primary color painting, just have one color, monochrome, or you can have 2 colors, 3 colors. Make progression out of it. You don't want to jump in and start doing painting the 16th chapel, for example. Now I'm adding a bit of highlights on the little guys, the people. I just want to have enough sort of assets in there to suggest that there are people walking, and there's a lot of people walking. I don't want to go in and start giving them jeans and pockets and everything, but just enough to hint that people are there. Going back to studies, I find doing environment paintings, like plain art paintings, those really help. Because you're painting from life, or you're painting from photograph, it doesn't matter. You're trying to recreate the scene as efficiently as possible. And that same technique will be carried out when you do your own paintings, say for environment or nature, things like that. The way you paint a rock in real life, it's the same that you paint a virtual rock in your brain. So doing some of that stuff will get that painting, the technique, the muscle memory right into you, so that you can draw from it later on. It's really important to grind, actually. I said grinding is the most difficult part, it's the least enjoyable part. But you know what? Nothing worth doing is going to be easy. So if you're thinking that this painting is not working, I'm just going to throw it away, sure, you can throw it away. Or you can make something out of it. You can learn from it. I have nothing against throwing it away. It's going to be a shit painting anyways. But you might take that shit painting and learn a few things.
You know what people want, Frank?
What?
They want to be at this point where you have all the lighting worked out, you have all the composition worked out, it's all worked out, and now that you're just having fun, you're just doing the fun part.
Just doing the rendering.
Yeah, they want to be here at this point. This is
detail.
This is the difficult part. What's the best way to get there to this point?
It's just to make all the right decisions before it.
Well,
if you make the wrong calls, you're not gonna get here.
So like making a map. So like setting up composition first, then lighting, or lighting first and then composition.
Yeah, it's like a roadmap. I mean,
give people a map how to get to this fun part. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of like what I was doing in the first 2 tutorials, where I talk about how composition is the most important part when you're starting a painting. I strongly advise not to go into any details at all, but just getting the first things right. I again, kind of going back to the first tutorial, the painting is not worth doing if you don't have a good composition. If your painting is going to have a shit composition, there's no point doing it. There's no point doing any detail on it, any brush strokes, just throw it away. Really, because who is going to look at a bad composed painting and admire the details? You might as well paint, still life. And composition might be the most difficult part because you can't cheat it. You can't. Well, I guess you can take a photo and be like, hey, I'm just going to copy this exactly because this already have a good composition. But that's not really your painting, so don't. You can't always work your way around it. So do those thumbnails. Practice, draw. I'm pretty sure there are people way better than me as an artist watching this video right now and thinking, what the fuck am I doing? But hey, this is my process. I gotta grind through it. This is the way how I'm gonna get better, even, you know. Because I hate myself for not doing enough personal art. I've been doing mostly painting for hire for the past 2 years, and to be honest with you, I've been hitting this plateau for a really long time, and I don't know what to do because I've been trying very hard and, you know, painting different things and trying different techniques, but nothing was working for me for a really long time. Even until now, I'm still hitting a wall. But I realized that's not really bad. If you feel like you yourself are hitting a wall, it's good. What it means is that you are no longer kind of like an amateur, because when I think back to when I started doing life drawings, I was thinking I was improving every day. Like, how could that happen if I'm improving every day? Every day I go to life drawing for 6 hours. I lay my prints on a thing, and I'm thinking I'm gonna make some progress today. Sure, maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, maybe I was delusional. I don't know. But a few months later, I looked at those paths. I threw them all away. They're all shit. The reason why I was feeling like I was making progress every day is because I was so shit. You cannot get worse. Of course, every day you go into it, you could try something else. You know, people are gonna compliment on it. But you know, you need that quantity. You need to just paint. You need to just draw. How to get better as a painter? You draw. You endlessly draw.
Should we edit in some inspirational music at this point?
Or you could just sing, really.
It's good insight, though. The reason you improved so much at the start was because...
The reason why we all did is that you keep going at it. You don't give up. You don't stop.
It was easier to get better back then, too.
It was easier to get better back then because we were very shit. It's harder to go from level, 86 to level 87. It's very easy to go from level 5 to 6. Imagine if you're playing on an RPG. Experience points, man.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to get. That's why you grind. That's why you... So you spend, I don't know, how many hours on grinding in a fucking video game, and you don't think you can do that for painting? Why? Why can't you do that for a painting?
You can.
Right? Yeah. You can. It's the same thing. You're gonna grind. So when you hit a plateau and you think you're not improving, good. It means that you're supposed to grind right now. Work smart. Look at tutorials, Even look at old master paintings. Try to find something out of them. Why are they so classic? What's so good about them? Maybe it's the color, maybe it's the composition. Let me give you a hint. It's never the details. So this is an overlay layer. Going back into the beginning, the base wash, which is a very dark brown, a little bit of a red tint. But now I'm trying to pull the values together a little bit more, pull the colors a little bit more together too, because I've been zooming in and doing local values for the past while, and now it's getting more and more important for me to go back in there and start pulling sections and pulling areas into the same influence. Overlay is great for that, but you want to be careful not to go too heavy-handed on it. So you want to do it just enough and jump into something else. I think detailing is really fun. Like, you can look for some references and just start painting the things that you want to paint, because everything is there already. Now for this part, I want to paint some metal panels. like a wall that's under this bridge.
I don't even see what you're doing right now.
It's getting a bit dark. I'm working on the left side wall. So mostly just cleaning up structures, fixing the little shops. You also want to balance out your colors a little bit. So if you have yellow over here, you don't want that group of yellow to be too distributed, too uniform. You will still have want to be grouped in the area. So I'm taking advantage of this yellow and just laying it on the left side of the wall. Some parts brighter, some parts not so much. It makes things jump out from the dark background. So if I'm using dark blues and the dark browns as my background, the yellow will bring something right out to look at you. So this is still not super detailed. I'm not spending a ton of time on making all the windows read. Still just like suggestions of it. Using lasso to make some billboards. One very good way to do this is just to flatten out the background, flatten out what's underneath it, and lasso something that you're going to put on top. So this layering thing, it only works when you have the values under control. If you don't, and you have too much, brush strokes, then things are going to get a little bit messy again. The reading of layers are not going to come out quite as clear. Fixing some structures on the streets. A city like this with all these billboards, these structures are somewhat hanging off the building facade. They're just extruded out a bit. So sometimes you want to give it a little bit of a structure, like a supporting structure underneath. There's a lot of there's a lot of concrete and steel extruding everywhere. It's like a jungle.
Oh, it's intimidating.
Yeah. It really
So
is.
many things that could be detailed. And how do you choose? Really?
You choose it. Basically, you
By
work on the things.
you choose by zooming out, really.
Yeah, you only want to work on the things that you want people to see.
Mm-hmm.
It's about dedicating your time. I think I could easily spend another 20 hours detailing everything in this painting. I would not enjoy it, but it could possibly happen.
But you wouldn't enjoy it because it's not all things you want to detail?
I think I would just be wasting time.
Oh, that's why.
If you tell the whole story with just enough brushstrokes, don't use an extra one. Coming back to the left side of the street. I think right now I'm just jumping all over the place. I'm working on everything at once. Going in with some texture brushes, randomize something.
How do you decide the order of things you work on then?
By zooming out and catching little parts of the painting that need fixing. Because right now the painting itself, like color-wise, I think it's working fairly well. So it's basically by catching mistakes. You're doing this zoom out check once in a while. And I caught the mistake on the right side building where the perspective is really wonky. So I basically just brushed some lines in before without really realizing where the perspective line is. So now coming back into it, just by flattening out that area, it makes it look way better. So the building is more grounded into the space. I don't want to make the yellow building over there completely flat, so I'm going to open up some part of the building, like a structure underneath, just to add a little bit more visual interest to the piece. Also the parking garage, I think the top of the parking garage, I'm going to make that into a somewhat of a platform. The foreground streets are still very undeveloped. But just by picking your local value and going in there, brushing some shapes, it already describes enough detail. I think for this particular painting, I'm deliberately not trying to look at too many real-life photos, because this is more of a style thing. It doesn't have to be super realistic. It's just it's my interpretation of what I think the Shanghai should look like.
So in the end, the buildings you can see below just became reflections on the ground plane?
Right, yeah, eventually.
That's still cool.
Because right now I don't want... If I do more of that downtown detail, I think it might be too much.
Mm-hmm.
It might be too much of a vertical pole, and then more detail doesn't necessarily mean better. I was afraid I was going to get too busy. Plus I put the car there. The car has to ride on something, so the road became solid. So some lasso there on the garage panels. I want to make a hint of some depth even in the garage walls. I kind of miss living in a big city in a way. Just have access to things super nearby. Now I live in Vancouver.
There's parts of the city that are big. You could consider a big city. It's just you live far from them.
Right, yeah. Nature-y. You can hike, you can run.
Yep.
There are even part of Toronto that I really miss. I really like this randomized brush for making these overlapping squares. They're very well textured too. This brush set is from Mercy Edge, from Gumroad, concept artist for Naughty Dog and a lot of titles. So I really urge you guys to check out his tutorial. You can get his brush set. It's great value, really. This is actually my first time experimenting with his brush set. So I'm jumping right into make this painting entirely with his brush set. As you can see, the brushes are pretty amazing. I'm still trying to get familiarized with it. Adding some brushes into my arsenal will be good.
That's nice. That rock siding looked like restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And you got rid of it. Right as I said it was nice.
It's kind of random though.
Why, Frank?
The rock?
Yeah, I see restaurants like that all the time with that fancy rock nonsense.
Put a piece of rock right next to the restaurant?
Yeah, no, it's like a statue.
Yeah, oh, right. Oh, yeah. Didn't think of that.
It's too late now, it's gone.
Too late.
I still love the top right of the painting. That nice, I wonder who's in there,
I'll keep it there then.
With the blinds.
I'm doing a bit of piping here inside of the building. I think, sci-fi stuff have some cool piping. Metal structures mixed in with concrete structures. Pretty cool. I feel that the left side of the facade doesn't have enough things to sort of break up the major shape. Because if you squint your eyes, the left side is going to be a major block of black. So I put some lights on the top to just add a little bit more interest. And then taking that blue, the blue has been absent from the top for a while. Just jumping right back in and getting that in there. Reintroducing some blues. It's looking really messy now.
Well, it's tighter than before.
In the background, yeah.
This stuff still looks fun.
It still is. Just going back in with the lasso tool again. So you have, if you put some regular shapes against a randomized background, it will instantly read.
You ever blur stuff ever? To get some focus, force some focus on parts?
Yeah, but not in the cityscape though. You know? No.
Nah.
No, I would not do a cityscape that's blurred out. Since I'm already putting so much detail into it, I don't want to blur a section unless it makes sense. Because blurring is all about your focal length. Like your camera, your aperture is like larger or whatever. But if it doesn't make sense and you're just blurring it for the sake of blurring it, I would be kind of against that.
That started to look really nice zoomed in too. Oh, I like that treatment in the top left there.
Yeah.
That's
It's
my
clean,
new
right?
That's my new favorite part of the painting.
Yeah, and I got that from experiment just by randomly brushing some brush strokes.
That's nice. That's
So
kind of like Tokyo feel right there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
You're doing something to the top there. I've been waiting all painting to see that.
To see something happen to the top, yeah. I think it was just a texture brush. I wanted to make this as a silhouette, as a base, and then going back into brushing more structure to it. So experiment with different sets of brushes. You can get some pretty good result from using them smart. Here I think I'm gonna use I'm gonna use a cone stamp to get some information in there. Digging through my brushes. I'm getting close to a point where you can start to wrap up the painting. So anything beyond this point is kind of icing on the cake. It's not absolutely necessary to the painting, but you can still have fun with it. You can still go on much further. Depends on, and now it really depends on how much detail you want in there. Now, by wrapping up the painting, there's a couple of things I still need to do, but before that, get as much detail or as little detail as you want in there. It doesn't really matter that much. For this tutorial's sake, I'm gonna continue and talk a little bit about just detail treatments and how I would polish up a painting. Because you could go on for hours, really. It's about being smart with your edges. So you gotta be mindful which edge is gonna catch the light and where your light source is gonna be from. And also, we're painting on a canvas, so there's a lot of cheat we can use. We don't really need to have a light under that bridge, so right now I'm keeping it fairly dark. Just using the brighter, little bit of a brighter green there to describe the detail. Just using those edge even. I really like the cinematic feel of some of the city scenes I've seen. A little bit inspired by Blade Runner. That's the name that always pop up.
Everything's
inspired by Blade Runner because it's so early. Yeah, the little dark parts, the little pockets over there, I can just use a clone stamp again to fill in some details. So it's kind of look like a window to the inside of the structure. It's like a little gap that you can see into. And I made the little guy smaller because I think it's way out of proportion there. Detailing up the road. The side of the street needs to be a little bit cleaned up. I'm thinking this is a little bit of a raised platform. Maybe the grooves on the bottom street, the grooves maybe like streetcars. They still have that in the future, maybe. Maybe everyone just have jetpacks, and I'll be completely wrong. Oh my god, noodle, 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 noodle. This is difficult for me to watch even.
What the heck is this?
I'm trying to make a shape to put on the ground.
Oh.
So a lot of the times when you need something detailed, like a repetition, just do something like that. And then free transform it, drop it in, put it into shape. So instead of like a white line describing the side of the street, I was thinking maybe I can use some shape language to do that. Something that's a little bit different. Since it's the future, everything's up in the air. You can do a lot of different designs. Doing the same thing on the other side of the street also. When you're in the move tool, you can press Alt and then drag to duplicate it while you're moving it. Going back with a harder brush now. You want a mixture of soft and hard edges to create tension and tell a story. Not everything has to be super hard, of course. But generally hard edges and hard shapes describe more than a soft brush would do. So if you're confident with your brush strokes and you know what you want, just jump in there with a hard brush. Giving the people some clothes.
That's really nice of you. Give them clothes.
Yeah.
Do you care much about the people though in this painting? Not really.
Not too much. Maybe just enough. Getting some more people in there too. I want to get rid of that shadow over there. That guy wasn't working out. So you guys can actually leave a comment on whether or not you like the pacing of the video. The entire painting, I think it took about 5 to 6 hours.
This is sped up?
This is sped up, yeah.
I guess you are moving pretty fast.
Yeah, it's double speed. So right now we're sitting at close to a 2-hour point. In real time, that would be close to 4 hours. I generally want my videos to be informative, so I'm not skipping anything. You can see all the brushstrokes happening as they go. But I also don't want them to be so slow and difficult to follow almost. Like, it would be hard for me to come up with new things to say when it's like completely real time. Just enough so I can describe my thought process and not talk to people to death.
Well, in the future, you're gonna do like an hour speed paint live commentary.
Oh,
No?
for sure. Yeah, when I'm doing maybe some live streams later on. 1-hour paintings are super fun, but this is to really detail up the painting even. So I think it's important for people to see, a lot of the detailed and noodling parts that I was doing, since this is a full-scale video and painting process.
I would definitely stop it here if it was me. But you keep finding more stuff to do.
Yeah. We're getting to the really time-consuming parts.
Where you're sexifying little things?
Yeah. The details.
Mm-hmm.
Making the platform on top of the parking garage. I'm not even close to getting to the final parts yet, because the final parts means more billboards,
Yeah.
readable signs, things like that.
Is this a sign right here?
This is gonna be a sign.
Nice.
Just flattening out as a base. It's also important to be disciplined when you're painting, because you constantly want to jump ahead and finish the painting, but sometimes you have to leave certain processes until the end. Things like blooming out your lights, adding filters.
Yeah, you kind of resist.
You have to resist. You can't do it too early on. There's no way.
Otherwise, it gets really chaotic really fast.
Yeah, you can't step backwards. So I'm just starting to make signs now. I think that's a ramen place.
What are the sort of tools you're resisting right now when you look at it?
I generally resist using color dodge until the very end of the painting. And I absolutely resist using sharpen.
That comes at the end as well?
Yes. So there's like a whole ritual about wrapping up the painting.
With you? Okay.
Yeah. The ramen place. Gonna need some tables and chairs. See, this is the fun part again. It's so pointless and useless.
Well, you're putting little stories there.
And
that's what's the best part.
I don't want it to stand out so much that people are gonna look at this instead of the background. But I want people to, after the first 2 seconds of looking at a painting, I want them to find little things.
You should do a bunch of different versions, where you explain how using this painting you can make multiple different focal points.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so
that would be cool.
You can actually say like, all right, so here's how I would make a focal point of this ramen shop, and then
and then just detail
manipulate everything else.
Detail the hell out of it, blur out the background.
Yeah, do whatever, and then
do a cutout.
Show them how you do that, and then say, okay, now what if I wanted to make the focal point this person?
Yeah,
in the crowd.
It would take a lot to actually just like undetail some of the parts as well, because the whole painting has been about creating all sorts of different contrast in complexity and detail and everything, even in lighting. So I guess it's definitely doable to switch focal point right now. It would be kind of inefficient because you already spent so much time doing the backgrounds. I would actually take out all the lighting.
I'm just thinking for the sake of learning.
Yeah. For the sake of learning, yes. I would take out all the lighting.
For the sake of teaching.
In the back. And just detail the hell out of that ramen shop. We were talking about animating some paintings too. I think that's a pretty interesting idea. I want to be able to get into maybe later on in my explorations about these paintings.
After Effects, bro. After Effects. That's all you need.
Do a lot with it. Yep, still putting a focal point over there to unify the background area, so that your eyes will go directly to the brightest part of the billboard instead of it being lost in all the junk that was around it. Now I'm kind of able to bloom out the light a little bit because all the details I want are in there. I'm not so worried about losing them anymore. Some lights on the bottom, those dotted lines. Some little indicator lights on the building as well. Dropping these little sharp lights kind of it makes the painting look more detailed than it is. So making just a few more billboards to break the flat ground, the flat plane on the left side. I think the facade is still looking fairly flat. 2 or 3 levels of balcony, some windows, but we need some signs sticking out. This whole detailing up process is really about finding areas that you think need a little bit more finesse and cleaning them up. A lot of the time it's not about adding so much detail as much as it's about taking away some detail, flattening out some planes to make it read better. So all of this is about construction and keeping things clean. It's not really about getting as many doodads in there as possible, but rather making wood read and making it look good for the entire painting. A lot of the times we'll have to exaggerate the lighting to get the effect that we want. In this case, the cityscape, some of the lightings on the structures are definitely exaggerated. You want that hard lighting against the dark backgrounds to really, bring it out. Because everything in this painting so far has been painted by hand, so a lot of it's kind of it's very stylized in the approach. It's not the same as maybe painting completely photoreal, but this is more of like an illustration that take advantage of a lot of the colors and contrast. A lot of the dirtiness of brushstrokes are preserved in the end product. I think it's very important to establish a style.
Well, you got all the research behind you, though, right?
Yeah,
like,
the research has to be there.
This is all from head. It comes from experience, no?
Yeah.
For people who aren't as experienced with cities as you definitely recommend
Well, it's just about walking around and keeping a visual library in your head, so you have things to pull from, right? So a good way to look at details and focal point is that the painting is really a hierarchy of important and less important details. So some of the details have more pull, has more energy than the other ones. So you want to keep it tidy enough that some of your detail matters more. The only thing that has not really changed ever since the thumbnail stage is how you would direct the viewer's eyes. So that probably shouldn't change once you've started the painting. Everything that you're doing with colors, your line weight, your contrast is used to direct the viewer's eye to a certain area. It's as much important as the actual silhouettes and the actual composition of the painting. So using sharpness and value, contrast, that will describe your painting more than anything else. So a lot of the structures and the things, they're all described through value change. So the things that you were doing in the thumbnail stage, those get carried out all the way to the final painting. The colors are nice, the colors are there to tell atmosphere, the mood, but if you take away the color completely, the painting should still read. But whereas if you try the reverse, if you try to take away value and just have color in a painting without actual dark and brights, the painting wouldn't read at all. So it's very important to think of this also as a black and white, a brightness scale. Not only don't just use colors to describe something, it has to read as form. So value change equals form change. You're getting all your values in a consistent manner that describes exactly what you want to describe. Basically, all your lighting are described through your values. It's very dangerous to sort of get excited about rendering all the details, especially at an early stage. Whereas the most important thing for you to render is not the amount of detail, but rather how the details react to lights. So you're actually rendering light for every piece of the painting. If you're rendering the details without taking account of where the light direction is from, then it would very easily look flattened and out of place. And it would be very confusing for the viewer as well. So detailing could mean a lot of things. It could mean maybe larger brush strokes and taking away unnecessary ones. Like I said, if you can tell a story in 10 brush strokes, don't use another one, basically. Don't use 11th one. Simplifying some shapes by flattening things out really helps. But now I'm just giving everyone smartphones. Like all these little guys walking, they have little virtual screens.
Did you do sunflower tower painting with references?
Yeah, I did. I think for that one I actually used a little bit of photo references.
Wow,
to
this
actually
one's this is referenceless.
Yeah.
This one, so I'm really impressed.
In the sense that there's no physical photos in here at all.
You got all. This is all your vocabulary, your mental vocabulary in terms of buildings.
Pretty much.
And it takes a while to build that up, right?
It takes a while to build that up, and I'm still trying to add to it. Like a lot of my mental vocabulary needs work.
So is that just a matter of like you see something interesting in real life and you put it down in a sketchbook or take a photo?
You put it down in your brain mostly, but if you have a camera or things like that, then you note it down as well. Or it just comes from looking at a lot of paintings and photographs and things that interest you. I think it's important to keep a open mind to look for design journal to look for these things actively. Now I put a layer on top as multiply to darken down some of the areas that doesn't need as much attention, but I would also tone it down through layer opacity, just so that we're not getting everything darkened down too much. Another layer on top is overlay. Coming back here with another overlay wash to brighten up some parts. This is just to tidy up my overall lighting. The ramen shop is gonna get a little love. Also, some of the buildings in the backgrounds. Just pushing that contrast a little bit more. intentionally tried not to use photographs for this painting, and I also tried to push this as far as detail go to be a fairly detailed scene. This is just to show my process of rendering stuff out, and also you don't need to. I want to get a point across that you don't absolutely need photos to finish any concept paintings. Like, it's very important to be able to do this stuff without photos, and then photos, it's kind of like icing on the top. If you can use photos, definitely. If I use photos for this, it will save me a lot of time, but I will also get a different result. So it's after what you want, and not really, it's not in a sense that, oh, I'm just gonna cheat because I can't paint it. No, it's something that you learn to be able to deal with. In the last video, I talked about not letting photos to dictate where you're going to design. Well, here's a very good example of just designing exactly what you want and not being limited by photos at all. But I'm not saying using photo will be limiting. I'm saying learn to have it not be limiting, right? I can drop some photos in here and still paint on top. It'll get my values quickly. It'll get my colors in quickly. It will save a lot of time. But is it an absolute necessity to do that in concept art? Maybe for the sake of time, but not really. I'll do a photo batching tutorial in the next few videos. Like I said before, I've worked with photos exclusively for matte paintings. I've been doing that for maybe over a year. When you get your plate and then you get your black level from that plate, the plate is the original footage that was shot on. So it's very photo heavy. Everything needs to be rendered almost like looking through a camera. But this is the other spectrum where you don't need to do any of that stuff. If you have full range of freedom to do anything you wanted. And it's really kind of enjoyable to actually hand paint the detail as well, because you get a lot more out of it too. One of the most important part about improving yourself is looking at your paintings critically and being able to self-critique, and also being able to take critiques well. If someone looks at your painting and it doesn't agree with you, you should hear him out about the reasons. Because everyone have a different style. I haven't seen any two artists that paint exactly the same. Usually it doesn't happen. Because, in the painting there's so much decisions to make, and everyone would make those decisions somewhat differently. So it's like the best way to express what you want in the final result is to make those decisions by yourself without outside, influences. So now I'm coming towards just adding more signs. This is the stage where I'm kind of adding culture and grounding the image into a real world setting. So I'm trying to make some signs that that'll describe something.
This is the eye candy.
Yeah.
This is the stuff I like, at least.
For sure. Just trying to make a bit more like logos and signs to put on the buildings. Trying to find a color that sits well on there. It's not attracting too much attention, but just enough. This final finessing takes a bit of time too, and it's kind of important not to rush it too. So I'm really just taking my time, doing, small little things here and there. Probably won't make much of a difference in the long scheme of things, but it's kind of enjoyable, putting things here. And it helps that I read kanji as well, so trying to make these things actually make sense. And that there says life insurance. Little red sign over there on the right, in front of the restaurant, says Matchstick Man. I don't know why. Yeah, when I put in real text and stuff in, you gotta be really careful about the edges, because these looks really sharp. Generally you want to dirty them down a lot and make them blend in, especially when your other shapes are not sharp enough. That could really look out of place. So throw on some textures, just lock the transparency, rasterize the type, and make it not jumping out quite as much.
So now you can do all the stuff that you've been resisting.
Now you can do all the signage and text and things that you've been holding back on, because you really want to get structure down before you do any of this stuff. And this is kind of like the most time-consuming thing either. Just detailed out some parts of the foreground now, since the foreground hasn't been getting any love. This little randomized square brush is pretty amazing. Look at that. Just creates texture. Bam. Just like that. So here what I'm trying to make is actually the subway signs in Shanghai. It tells you which line to take and which direction to get to them. This is the kind of stuff that I would normally use a photograph over. But just for sake of argument, I'm just going to paint them in super quickly. skew it a bit and try to make it into perspective. The same process goes for anything you want to put in. It's basically make the shape and dirty them down, texture things, make it look a little bit blended in and dirtied down. So I'll probably do this for every single sign that I put in here. Lowering down on the layer opacity too. Just throwing in some dirty textures, kind of like streak marks. Some lights on the bottom, just a tiny bit of interest points to break up the long line over there. So detailing up the shop door. Keep the viewer's eyes from falling out of frame there, added another guy right at the corner of the shot. So this is really there for compositional reasons. There's not really much need for a guy.
Well, that way when your eye goes right, it swoops back up into the painting.
Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't even notice that. But it works.
It works.
And you're so much better now.
Yeah. Something to stop the lines from leaving the frame, you know. And something that's not going to catch a lot of attention either. You don't want to put your focal point so close to the edge. Normally you want people's eye to stay within the frame. So the closer it is to the edge of the frame, the more it's going to leave. This is going to get really noodly for a bit.
So well, this is just finesse now.
Yeah.
A little polish.
Yeah. This is the only time that I'm not against detailing and spending some time with that finesse brush. But you gotta do these in order of importance. Have some discipline in the beginning, get to the major points, and then when everything's sort of looking okay, you can fall back down and just turn your brain off, start polishing everything to your heart's content.
Not too much.
Nah, but not too much.
You don't want to kill your focal points. Oh, it depends, really.
Yeah, I guess if you're staying within your values, you're not going to kill the focal point too much. Just don't be jumping from, this local value to something completely outrageous. Be careful using your lights. Be careful adding new lights. Values are really there to sculpt the form. So a lot of the detailing, it's done by changing values and how they kind of react to the light. You can be a little off with colors, basically hue and saturation, and still get away with it. If you're struggling to make colors work on your painting, a lot of the times it isn't color's fault. A lot of the times maybe your values are just wrong. So if you're struggling to make a color work in certain areas, say the saturation and stuff, it's just not working, try to turn the painting back to a black and white state and look at the value. If it reads well, then you can continue to struggle with the color a little bit. And sometimes, most of the time, you'll find that your values are not telling the story. So if you're jumping in with colors too early, you might run into that problem. So another thing I want to talk about is giving everything the same highlight and shadow treatment. That's obviously bad in the sense that everything's going to be rendered in the same way. And because everything's rendered to the same way, they're going to be completely flattened out with almost zero local values, and you can't push and pull from that. So you see in my painting, at least this one, I'll be very careful with giving things that edge of highlight. A lot of people do, when they first start doing these renderings, I know that's how I started. I started by giving everything highlights, and I was wondering why it doesn't look so good, why the painting looks so chaotic and difficult to read. So you gotta have that discipline to say, I'm not gonna add highlights to this. This is just gonna stay in the shadows. Because you really gotta divide and conquer. A lot of the part of the painting is just gonna stay in the shadow. It's gonna do its thing. It's gonna suggest information. But highlights, I would reserve those things that matters. Plus, you're lighting your scene carefully with finesse. You're not applying equal light to every part of your painting. If you ever worked in 3D, you know that if you have a complicated scene, you gotta be careful with your lighting. So you don't want to lit everything uniformly equally. There's always going to be a shadow line, and you gotta place that shadow strategically. The cast shadow and where the lights come in to fill. Like there's going to be reflective light and bounce light. So be really careful about that. Also, another thing, when you're finishing a painting with colors, is that it's very easy to flatten your painting and then use the color balance tool to change your color scheme. Say that you started with this color scheme and then you wanted more of a yellowish or a reddish tint. My sentiments are that your first choice probably isn't too bad. The reason why you're getting all the color balance hype, it's probably because it would look fresh. Once you change the primary colors of the painting, it's going to look completely fresh to you. And it's going to take a little while to sink in. So you might have changed it, and then within 10 minutes you'll feel like it's not working again, or it's not working as well. So be very careful about changing your colors after the painting is, at least the color is established. I would not be changing that all over the time. Just pick one and roll with it. Because value is going to tell the most story anyways. Here when I make these signs, I put them on the transparency lock. I put the layer on transparency lock. That gives me a bit of room to play around with the lighting. So if I paint into the sign, I know my silhouette's going to be preserved. So I can get some really good local gradients. So when you're painting something this, say, detailed, it's very easy to have a bad stroke economy. So you could be brushing carelessly all over the place, and it would make the painting look very spontaneous and painterly. But if you want to achieve an effect that's a little bit more ordered, say a cityscape in this regard, it would flatten everything out. So be careful with your depth there. Comes to a point where you need to be more careful with your brush strokes. That's what I'm saying. In the beginning, it doesn't matter. Eventually, you tidy things up a bit. Here, I'm trying to add an element to the right that's going to break up the shape even more and stop the viewer's eyes from exiting the frame on the right side. So this is going to be a pedestrian traffic light. Little sci-fi elements like these adds a lot to the story, because these are little individual elements that you can have fun with. They serve no more purpose than just compositionally being there and adding a little bit to the story. So I can make this thing look really cool and still wouldn't be too out of place. I want to put a symbol in there. That should look good. Give a little bit of light and reflections off of the top, the yellow windows. Whenever you put something in, you gotta be really mindful of what's around it. Just adding a bit more signage. Control-Shift-J to bring your selection into a new layer. Blend that in a little bit. This is just to give it the extra level of detail in the foreground. It's not really necessary, but since everything else is so detailed, this will probably help it blend in. But I don't want to be really heavy-handed, so everything I'm putting in as detail, I'm trying to tune it down by lowering the opacity. A little whiskey sign there, a little bar, maybe in the alleyway.
Where's the KTV, Frank?
Nah,
Nah?
no place to sing.
Looks nice. It really comes together for me. Once those signs are in there and there's some personality, I like that.
Yeah, basically adding culture to the painting.
You can even add more, really.
I could add more, because in Shanghai, in these places, there's a lot
They
more.
cram them everywhere. Cram a shop in every little corner.
Every little corner, yeah. But there's a point, to me, I have to say enough is enough, and I can't really do too much. But street sign, I think street sign will add a lot more to it. It's kind of like a title within the piece. So...
Oh, that is nice.
So it's, because everything on the right side, there's not much to look at. But once you add like one element in there that makes sense, it doesn't look out of place, it'll really help it.
Where are you gonna put that? Friggin', I like it right there, even. Oh, okay.
Just right smack in the middle.
Yeah, it's like kind of like, yo, this is Sunflower Street. It kind of like represent.
Yeah.
But I guess like wouldn't it be cool to have a series of paintings that are
would
all
be kinda
different
cool.
streets?
Yeah.
And you had that big thing in the center that said this is this street.
Yeah, I painted
like
we were talking about this idea before. Some of our friends, we all contributed to an idea called Sunflower Towers. I had a painting in that category before, so this is kind of like the next step after, how many years has it been?
More than
3-4 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like the original too, kind of like the futuristic cityscape, really busy, lots of culture, lots of style. This might be one of my favorite things to paint, actually. So I think we're getting closer to the final product now, finally. Now I'm just adding sharpen, so I'm going up to my filter panel, go to sharpen, and this is a unsharp mask. Gotta play around with your attributes here a little bit. You might not be able to see it very clearly in the video, but what this does is that it takes your values and colors and add a little bit edge of sharpness around everything, and you can choose how much sharpness to add and how harsh the sharpness is. It just gives the whole painting a very crisp feel. All your brush strokes suddenly pops. So this is why you want to clean up your brush strokes, because once you do the sharpening, it'll make everything pop, right? So you want to have flat areas, deliberately clean up all your messy brush strokes, so that not everything's going to look completely flattened once you do the sharpening. In this case, sharpening just makes the area that you described pop, and things you want to stay flat can still be relatively flat. Gotta give that car some xenon lights, you know, some blue tint. This is one of the final touches to the painting. I put a new layer on top and go to color dodge. Try not to be super heavy-handed with this because it's very easy to go completely blown out. But just pick a mid-tone color actually and go in to bloom up some of the signage and some of the highlights that you want people to see, especially some of the things that has a light cast over it. This is the perfect opportunity to bloom those lights out against the dark background. So this is another reason why not to do this too early. You have a lot more finesse in the end. If you make everything too bright in the beginning, you're not able to do this. Everything's going to be washed out by the time you come to an end. So this is my little ritual about wrapping up the painting. You know, you want to sharpen, you want to do the color dodge, pull the values closer together. I just want to thank you guys for joining us again. And add me on Facebook. Check out my Gumroad channel for more tutorials. I have free videos every week. Also leave a comment and like my tutorials. It will really help me to make the new ones. And I really appreciate you guys checking this out. Please tell us what you think and what you'd like to see in the future videos. If you want to keep on seeing polished paintings or you want some quicker sketches. Anything really, so let us know. Thanks and see you again in the next video. Cheers guys.